Hello.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. It's really good to see you this morning or afternoon.
This afternoon? Yes. Well, so good to see you. And I am really excited for our guest today. And I know you'll be introducing him and reading a little bit. So, yeah,
Yeah.
excited to dive right in.
So I jump right in so we have lots of time to talk to
Let's do it.
our friend
Yes.
Josh. All right, here we go. I want everybody to know, and I'm going to read his bio because it is extensive because he's an amazing human. Okay, here we
In the
go.
most impressive way.
Yes.
Yes.
Josh Sundquist is is a motivational speaker who's inspired audiences across the world. His presentations blend humor and heartfelt storytelling to inspire people to discover their one more thing, one more time. That's what he's known for. At age 9, Josh was diagnosed with a rare form of bone cancer and given a 50% chance to live. He spent a year on chemotherapy treatments, and his left leg was amputated from the hip. He learned how to ski while on chemo, just a little extra time on his hands, through an adaptive sports program at Children's Hospital. After years of training, Josh was named to the 2006 U.S. Paralympic ski team for the 2006 Paralympics in Torino, Italy. Josh has since represented the United States in international competition as a member of the U.S. soccer team. Wait, there's more. Josh is an author of several books. His first memoir, Just Don't Fall, was a national bestseller and the inspiration for the Apple Plus TV series Best Foot Forward, which I've seen. It's amazing. The series has been recognized with numerous awards for authentic representation and is a 2-time Emmy nominee, including Best Children's Series. Josh's internet videos, get this, have over 1 billion views, and he has 4 million followers across all social media profiles. He's best known for his viral videos, especially his Halloween costumes. You have to check them out. People magazine named him to the 2017 social media power list as a social media influencer. He's worked with brands like Chase, Chevy, Dairy Queen, I could go on, AT&T, and many, many more. Josh is a celebrity ambassador for Children's Miracle Network hospitals and makes regular appearances at events and in media to raise money for children's hospitals across the country. He's a winner of the CNN Heroes Award and was featured on the back of Dorito bags, specifically spicy nacho flavor, for his work on behalf of amputees. Josh currently lives with his wife, Ashley, by the beach, and his son, who's almost 2, who I'd love to meet, by the way, and they enjoy watching magic shows. Let's bring out Josh because I have a gazillion questions.
A gazillion questions. Yes. Well, I'm going to make him the star of the show. Josh, it's so good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Wow. Where to even begin? That is really one of the most impressive bios I've ever heard. And I'm just so inspired by you. And I wanted to even start from the very beginning. When you were a kid and you were dealing with bone cancer and this chemo, like, how did you always just have this mindset of I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna break it, I'm going to make it happen? Like, for you to go into skiing, I want to hear about that time in your life, and it really seems like you've always had that mentality.
Yeah, before I was diagnosed with the cancer, when I had 2 legs, I was really into playing soccer, and that was like my ambition in life, was to like be a great soccer player and play on soccer teams and stuff. And so when I lost my leg, part of what was devastating about it for me at that age was not being able to like get on this local soccer team that I'd wanted to join. So skiing, it wasn't so much that I was like, man, I have such a great attitude, I'm gonna go out and ski. It was more just like, oh, I can't play soccer anymore, but here's the thing I can do. Like, this is awesome, let me try this. And because I had never skied before losing my leg. And so I think, I don't know that I would necessarily, maybe I've always had this thing, but I also think it was just practical, just like here's the thing that I want to do. I'm gonna go try and do it, and that's always probably been my philosophy.
And I know from listening to you talk about this, I mean, maybe doing it came somewhat easy for you, but getting from that stage to actually being on the Paralympic team is a different story. But that's nothing but hard work. Yeah, stamina, staying in there. I mean, tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I was maybe always a naturally good skier, but yeah, competing at the elite level is a different story. And I was not great at all when I started, and I was better when I finished, but I don't know if I would say I was great. Like, I just barely made the Paralympic team. I was literally the last person like to make the cut, but I made it after a number of years of training, and yeah, I think that was some good fortune and good luck, but also like just working hard and a lot of repetition over the years. And as you mentioned in the intro, Kris, I had this motto: one more thing, one more time. Mm-hmm. And that was my training philosophy. And it was just kind of always like, what else can I do? I'm tired, but can I do one more thing? Can I do one more rep in the gym, or one more run through the training course, or learn one more thing, or whatever? Because to be honest, I didn't think I was going to ever make the team. But I wanted to look back without regrets, and look back and say, I did everything I could. And that was my philosophy. And in some ways, then it was like a great bonus that I did get to make the team.
So do you still find yourself using that one more thing, one more time?
I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, at your accomplished stage in life, and
well, yeah, I think it's the it's funny. I didn't realize, because I had been giving speeches since I was like a kid, since I lost my leg, and then I was skiing, and then I was telling the story of skiing. But for many years after going to the Paralympics, I never talked about one more thing, one more time, because for some reason in my mind it felt very specific to skiing, because it was actually like a motto that I had sort of adopted from a Swiss ski racer, who's in his 70s now. We were actually DMing this morning on Instagram. And I think for him, maybe it was in German. I don't know what the translation was. But so for me, it just felt very specific to skiing. And then one time in a speech, I just happened to mention offhandedly that I had used this motto when I was training. And all these people afterwards were like, what was that motto? Like, tell me, I want to write it down again. And I was like, oh, I guess it's like a life motto. Like, it's not just skiing. And so, yeah, so that's what I found is it's not just skiing. It's everything that I do. And it's everything that everyone does. Like, maybe you haven't encapsulated it in those words, but if you've succeeded in something, whether that's professional or personal, you mentioned, Kris, I'm a parent now. I can't think of a better motto of what it's like to be a parent than one more thing, one more time.
You found a way to blend it throughout your life. And something that I think a company, when they're looking for a speaker to come and really inspire, but bring some depth to their meeting or to their event, like, they're wanting to find that person that can blend humor, but have heartfelt storytelling, have something really important to share. And that's what I think is so special about you, is you blend those so well: the humor, the storytelling, something to take away, a motto. And so how do you strike that balance when sharing such deep personal moments on stage? And has that always come naturally to you? Like, you said you were giving talks when you were a kid. I'm just curious to hear more about that.
Yeah, well, similar to when I started as a ski racer, I don't know that my talks in the beginning were all that great. But I guess I was in front of people at a young age, and I was articulate at a young age. So like that part came naturally, but like, learning how to share a story in an emotionally meaningful way, and also learning how to be funny on stage were, things that took, I think, many years. It's interesting because I've done a good bit of stand-up as well. And, when I first told 10 years ago, I told a couple of my best friends I was going to try stand-up. And one of my best friends was like, but Josh, you're not funny. And he wasn't even joking. It was just like a statement. But it's like, well, yeah, but like, making your friends laugh is really different than getting up on a stage and making a bunch of strangers laugh. And then it's even more specific for, what I mostly do is like keynote speeches at corporate events. And like most often salespeople, but associations, nonprofits, all kinds of stuff. So it's even a more narrow type of humor that works in a professional context.
Totally.
Because it can't be, it's not even just that it needs to be clean. It can't be uncomfortable because your boss is sitting beside you, right? Or your team is sitting with you. And so it has to be this very like safe, everyone feels good about this joke kind of way. So like self-depreciating, but like in a fun way. And so getting that lane, but also not being like cheesy or like a lot of speeches I hear in corporate context that when people are doing these jokes, I'm just like, don't do it doesn't work. Just don't even worry don't try to be funny. Like, don't even take that away. It's not working.
They're going there. Oh.
Right, just stop. So anyway, to answer your question, it is a blend, and I think a blend is the key piece for the type of thing I do, which is a inspirational, like motivational speech. I think the best comparison I always try to give clients is like, it's like a movie, like a feel-good sports movie, where when you walk away from a movie, you've laughed, you've cried, you've had moment, right? And it's like you felt all the emotions. Like literally, I try to think of like, am I hitting every emotional? Is there a point where people feel sad and inspired and and do they feel connected to their mission professionally? Do they feel upset at a certain moment? Like I want to hit all the feelings because that's what creates this emotionally meaningful experience. And that's what we want from a speech like mine. We want people to walk out of the room feeling like, wow, like that, what a journey, what a journey I've been on, both vicariously through that speaker, but also for me personally, because that speaker connected their story to mine as a member of this organization or this group or this audience. And so, what you always want, I think, is a roller coaster of deep moments of connection and inspiration, and then undercutting them with comedy and giving people like a break, and then into some other emotion, and that's what people most the thing I always hear after speeches is people are like, well, it was like an emotional roller coaster. Like I've never gone from laughing to crying and back to laughing so quickly, and I think that's the goal, is to create that experience.
Unlike an emotional roller coaster, you don't leave people hanging. You're really brilliant at taking them with you on that ride, but giving them very practical things that they can use, like one more time. But I mean, there are quite a few throughout the speech, and you do it masterfully. I'm going to disagree with your friend because you are damn funny.
Oh, thank you, Kris.
You are very funny.
That's kind of you.
I don't know how that happened. It had to come naturally because I can even hear it in your voice. You know how comics have that? I don't know what they do. There's something when they're like, you say the word better. And I'm like, I hear the comment, whatever. I'm married to one, so and I can attest he's not always funny, but it is different on stage for sure. But I just want to tell you before we get into more questions. Sorry, Channing, if I interrupted, but there's a real need and need for speakers like you right now. I think a lot of people listening would agree. We went through a real time of like, it's almost like the motivational speaker went away. Now, of course, that's overstating it, but there were so many back in the day. I've been around a long time and I remember it. And then it became all about, content was king, which is still kind of true. And you have found this way to be motivational, inspirational, and because it's a real story, real lived, breathed experience, but then also bringing, I mean, honestly, there's so much packed into your talk that is memorable for sure, but the kind of things that I actually use from hearing you speak. So, and I think that's going to be true for a lot of audiences. I'm just saying there's a big gap out there right now for speakers that fall into whatever category we just defined. I think it's a little different than it used to be. We still use the words motivational, inspirational, but we want more from them, than maybe we used to. Right.
No, for sure. That's definitely a trend, right? It's like people like I said, I speak a lot to salespeople, right? And like a tenured salesperson that's maybe been doing this for 20, 30 years, they've been to like 20 or 30 national sales meetings.
Yeah.
And they've heard like 50 motivational speakers already in their life. So you have to like break the pattern of expectation as a speaker to be effective. Of the kind of, when I walk on stage, it's kind of, okay, yeah, I know what's going to happen here. He's got one leg. He's going to tell some sad stories, et cetera, goal setting. And so, the first way that I want to break that is by understanding a lot about that group, right? I want to like know so much about that group that it's like astonishing to them when I start talking about them, and I can refer to people in the audience by name, and I can make jokes about what happened yesterday at their convention. That's kind of like what makes people sit up and lean forward. And then, furthermore, like what you said, Kris, it's not enough to just be entertaining, although you have to be entertaining, because if people aren't paying attention, doesn't really matter what you talk about because nobody heard it. But you can't just be entertaining, right? Because that's not the objective, right? The objective is to give people value, right? So where I think what you're talking about, Kris, is like content was king, and it still is in a sense, but I think what people really want is value, not just content, value, right? And so and the way I think of that is entertainment plus content, right? They have to be entertained to hear your content, but you want content too, right? So it's like a funny story, and in my terms of my style, funny story, and then turning and using that story as a metaphor and applying it to them, right? It's like, here's a thing, metaphor from the story, like let's whatever Paralympics, or like let's say it's like something about the Paralympics, and then it's like, well, what's your Paralympics, right? Like what's the vision that you have for where you're go, right? And so then you turn it toward them, and then when they walk away, a couple weeks later, maybe they had a problem in their life, or their job or whatever, and they're like, I don't remember that speaker's name, but I remember he said something about ice patches. He told that story about skiing and hitting an ice patch, and this is what he was talking about. This is one of those ice patches. So I think that that's the goal, is giving people these like metaphorical hooks and ideas that kind of linger and are ready to jump into action, in the future when they're relevant.
Exactly.
You just hit on exactly what a buyer is looking for today. It's that entertainment, it's that content, but it's also that association back to their viewer. And I love that you said, like, you want to know everything about that audience and that room and that company, because I think that is the thing. When we're being asked by teams, they're like, we want to make sure that the speaker not only is going to deliver a great talk, but they also care to like understand how they relate to us and how we relate to them. So I think your willingness and desire to do that, that's a huge, like, pun intended, but I think that's like a huge opportunity that we're starting to see is becoming almost the most important part for a buyer.
Right. On our side of it, one of the big things is, well, you too, Josh, you're really good at this, but is that goals and objectives for the actual event. But it's also, paying attention to their culture. Do we really get, what these people, what's like to be in one of them? And will this speaker be able to be in that room and feel comfortable to everybody? Or maybe at least makes sense. Maybe there's a little bit of discomfort and surprise, but anyway, your comment about learning all that about them led us to a conversation, you and I, Josh, that at the last event, we didn't do it this way because the client wanted something slightly different, but how you love to come at the end. And why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because that's the mark of a speaker who knows what they're really good at, how they can bring the most value, and what they're willing to do for that fee. I mean, that's also super important.
Yeah. Well, thanks for teeing up one of my favorite things in the world to talk about, which is my customization process. It's like customizing a speech. It's not just something for me personally. It's not just something I'm like willing to do. It's something I'm like obsessed with. Like that when, very often people want a speaker like me to open the event. maybe like first general session, maybe in first slot, maybe right after the president speaks or whatever. And it's fine. I'm happy to do it. That's a fair amount of my work. But I always try to persuade people, put me later. And the reason is because to me, it's like, it feels very, there's so many things to say. There's only so much that I can learn from a pre-call with a meeting planner.
Yeah.
I can learn a couple things. I can look at your website. I can read your PDFs that you send me. Great. I'm happy to do all that. But like, I can't really know what it's like to be one of these people until I've sat with them in a room for a day. And I've watched them. I've met them at the breaks. I've observed how they react to what happens on stage. I've seen what happens on stage. I've seen what other leaders have to say when they come on stage, right? Like, that's how I can really know them. And if I do that, and so that's what I like to do, is I like to be later in the conference. Because if I'm opening, it's like, yeah, maybe I know and this is what most speakers do, right? They're like, yeah, I customize. I've got a blank, the third sentence in my speech, I say the CEO's name, and like 20 minutes into the speech, I name the industry that they're in, and 40 minutes into the speech, there's one more blank where I'll like name one challenge that they've recently faced, right? It's like, great, that's fine, that's better than nothing. But to me, it feels like really uncomfortably arrogant for me to come and be like, hey, what's up? I just got here from the airport. I don't know who you people are, but let me tell you how great I am. I'm pretty great. I've got an hour's worth of stuff about how great I am. Like, that's really weird to me. It's like going on a date and just talking about yourself for an hour. You'd be like, well, that was a horrible date. That person just talked about themselves for an hour. Now, I am going to talk for an hour without you talking too much as an audience, but I will try to get you to talk some back to me. But what I want is to feel like a dialogue because I've made it personal to you, to this group. So that's what I was saying is I want to go, like, the later I can go in a conference, the more stuff that has happened that I can relate my talk back to.
Yeah, you're good at that.
So if I'm like, and that's why I'm always trying to convince people, like, yeah, you can have me as your opener, but like, have me as your closer. Like next week, my next speech, I'm flying in on, I'm looking at my calendar, I'm flying in next Sunday, and then I'm watching their general sessions all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and then I speak Tuesday afternoon, right? So, and I don't charge anyone extra to do this. My wife is always like, why do you, no one's paying you. This is like a terrible dollars per hour proposition that I'm just donating days of my life. But to me, it's because I know it makes this speech so much better. Like, it makes it
more fun for you, yes?
It's for me, yes. It's way more interesting because it's like, I've heard my stories. I know what happens. I'm like, I know the jokes. I know where it's going. I know that I survived the cancer. But what's interesting to me is cool. I'm going to tell my life story, obviously, but how can I make my life story a specifically relevant metaphor for this audience?
Yeah. And
what are the inside jokes that develop over the conference that you have to be in the room to notice?
Yeah.
Right. And it's the little things at the hotel and the way the buttons are weird on the elevator, right? It's like all those little things, and then you put those in the speech and people are like, oh wow, he gets us, he notices us. And conversely, that's like the value add, but the thing that you're avoiding, and you both have, I'm sure, been to enough conferences where you see this, is when you see an outside speaker come in, not know what's happened before, and they use like a metaphor, like let's say, like I have a story that I often tell Kris has seen about a softball game, right? And it's very often that a speaker before me or the CEO has talked about baseball in some way. They've used some kind of baseball metaphor, and they might have used it like in the opposite way that I am, right? It might be like kind of the opposite point about strikes or whatever. And if I'm an outside speaker and I come in and I talk about baseball and I say it in the opposite way as the CEO, and I've seen a lot of outside speakers do this, it's bad, right? Because the audience is like clenches up. It's very uncomfortable. The speaker doesn't know why, but they know that they've lost the room.
Right.
The CEO is mad because that, like, the speaker just contradicted them. Guess who gets in trouble? The meeting planner, right? but it's not the meeting planner's fault per se. It's because the speaker didn't know, and because they didn't want to, because no speaker wants to do what I do. No speaker wants to sit through like days of meetings. But to me, it's like, that's worth it because I avoid that problem. I make the meeting planner look like a hero because not only do I not contradict this CEO, I like add to what he or she said. I'm like, oh, like Sharon said yesterday about baseball, here's another thing about baseball. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, now it's like this was all planned. This was all synthesized, in advance. That's so, yeah, that's, anyway, I can go on and on about this.
It makes a tremendous difference to your presentation, but it also makes a tremendous difference to the conference. Like, it's funny when you sit in that room listening to you, like you said, way into the conference. Doesn't, I guess, have to be the last thing, but towards the end. And it's almost like, you're tying it together for them. You're giving them a little package that sort of maybe didn't hit on every point, but helped kind of wrap it up. And that's, what's that worth? A lot, I will tell you. Yeah. Anyway, what's left to do for you? I feel like I just look at this. I just keep thinking about it. I'm like, no, he's done this, the TV show. I mean, you're obviously just. The Halloween costume thing gets me because it's like, I know that you have to think about that all the time. When you're looking around going, oh, that could work.
Yep. It's a year-round proposition.
Appreciate it and involve in it too.
Yeah, totally. No, it's really fun now. Yeah, because it's like we've got a lot of my costumes are set up here in our basement, and our 2-year-old son now. It's like he loves going in and putting on all of the masks. So like the Tigger mask and the Groot hat, and dressed up as a firefighter 2 years ago. He's really into firefighters now, so he loves putting on the firefighter hat. So yeah, that's really fun. So yeah, definitely like this year in thinking of the costume more so than any other time in my life, I'm thinking like, well, what's our son gonna like? Like what's gonna be cool and interesting that I can dress as because I have one leg. So yeah, no, it's definitely an ongoing proposition. But as to your point, Kris, of like, yeah, what's next? I've got, after this recording / live stream, I have an appointment with my therapist to address that exact question that we discuss every week. So yeah, I don't know. I like writing books. To be honest, is probably my favorite thing, professionally speaking. So I continue to write books. I've written many books that have not been published. I've published 5 books, but there's many other mediocre manuscripts languishing on my hard drive. So I'm always tweaking those. Still a new father. So that's like the new thing that's he's constantly changing and will be forever. So yeah, it's always like a new challenge and a new opportunity as a dad.
I have a quick question. Out of the 5 books that you've published, which book would you say is the most receptive for like a sales group? If you're speaking to a sales convention or whatnot, what would be the best book for them?
Yeah, no, it's my first book. It's Just Don't Fall. That's so yeah, I mean, very often, of course, clients are like, we want to buy 500 books for everyone in the room. That's the one to buy. It's my like life story, basically. It's a longer version of what the speech is. So that's, my other books are great and everything, but like that's the one that's going to be, because what you want when you get a speaker's book is for it to be sort of a souvenir of your event, right? Maybe it's signed, it's special, but you want people to go home and for it to feel like a supplement to the speech or an expansion of the speech, so that's what my first book is, Just Don't Fall.
Awesome. And what's so cool is that they can go and watch the Apple TV series too.
Yeah, totally. Which is really fun because it's like a family comedy, and very, very often people have kids and they want to, when you see a speaker you like and you have kids, like you want to like share the speech with them in some way, but that there's not really like a way to share my speech with your 10-year-old.
Totally.
Even if you have the recording of it, it's like not relevant to the 10-year-old so much. But it's like you can share a piece of my life story with your 10-year-old through this this like sitcom on Apple TV. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to have that. And in this day and age, more people are walking away from my speech thinking they want to go watch my TV show than have to read all of the words in one of my books.
Hey, it's a good option, either or. And
either or.
We should let everybody know these Halloween costumes we're talking about, which are so incredible. If you go to joshsundquist.com, you can see the costumes there. And honestly, it is worth however much. You're going to find yourself staying there for a while because they're a riot. I want to just mention one more thing that has been coming up with buyers a lot lately. And they don't always have exact words for this, but what they're basically telling me in so many words is that people are beat up. People are hurting right now. And I know there's a million reasons, starting with, the loneliness epidemic everybody talks about. That was a lovely result from the pandemic. But then it's also, people going back to work, and a lot of emotion around that, and jobs changing, AI changing, the fear of there's so many things, right down to what's happening politically in our country, wherever you fall on that spectrum. But I mean, you make people feel better. I'm just going to say, we need more of that right now. And honestly, it's the primary thing that I think about when I think Josh Sundquist. You make people feel better. You give us hope in a lot of different ways. And then beyond that, there's all the practical stuff we talked about, that you take time to get to know the audience, that you weave in value every chance you get, that what you do for a conference. I mean, I'm giving myself goosebumps right now, but I mean, you're sort of the ultimate package for people like us who want to talk to. I really mean it. It's. I've had examples before in my career, and I've talked to you about one or two of those. But you're in great demand right now. I just think the reason we're doing this today is we want more buyers to know about you in our corporate market, and we're going to do our part to make sure that happens.
Well, thank you. And thanks for being such a great partner. And yeah, no, I do think, if I had to distill what I do down to one word, it would be hope. I think that's what people need as humans, always, not just now, that's what we needed probably 10 years ago and 1,000 years ago also. And so, my speeches are one way of increasing the collective level of hope in the world and in that particular room for that particular group.
Well, thank you for that. And Channing, I'll let you wrap up.
Yeah, no, I just am so appreciative. That's the feeling I get as well when listening to you, is hope. And I think that you are, as Kris is saying, the full package for a company. So it's really exciting for us to get to talk to you and dive in deeper and just hear some of these great stories in real time. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we will be excited to continue the conversation.
And work with you some more.
Yeah.
Likewise. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.